Hi guys, can we start the meetup? First of all, thank you all for coming during this snowstorming or whatever it is. In past 2 months, we had a lot of activities in our organization. We held some workshops. It was interesting when we saw some people who are making first steps in testing and programming. So now I want to introduce our new great member, Ivan Marinkovic. And also there is another guy, Marko Vukašinović. Ivan will tell us something about end-to-end testing, Selenium, and some rules in design. And Marko will speak about screenshot in test automation. So we can start. Enjoy the meeting.
Okay, hello. Hello world, actually. My name is Ivan. I am a QA engineer, QA automation engineer at Interventure, GoGoAir team. I started working as QA, 2011. This is my third company. And I like QA. I will continue working as QA, especially automation. So you have here my email address, my LinkedIn profile, also Slack ID for QA Serbia. You can contact me anytime you want. Also, those information you are going to see at the end of the presentation. This is just introduction. Also, my colleague Marko Vukašinović, he is over there, and he will introduce himself when his talk comes. Okay, so. Berlin. Actually, I'm going to talk about Selenium conference that was held in Berlin in October 2017. And accidentally, in Berlin, there were festival of lights. So all big monuments and everything were dancing in light. So you can see some pictures, Brandenburg Gate, TV Tower, and actually not all the monuments were on website, so you could vote which show you like the most, and I don't know which one won, so I left Berlin. Okay, about Selenium conference. It was from October 9th to October 11th. It took place in Urania Center in Berlin. It's annually held from 2011. There were two days talks and two tracks. So me and Marko were attending it, and we split. So I can follow one track, he can follow another track to cover all the talks, at least the most of them. Total 28 talks total, and 1 day workshops. We didn't attend this one, but I don't know how it worked. There were some committers talk. Committers talk, I mean the guys from Selenium itself. They held, I don't know, few presentations. Also Ignite and closing sessions, and there were a lot of sponsors and partners. So it's about Selenium conference. You can see some pictures from Selenium conference. This is a lobby, this is a main stage before presentations, and of course there were some funny slides and funny talks. Okay, but important stuff. what we are going to talk. Those are some of the interesting talks. So let's say I will give you a few seconds to read it. I won't talk anything. I won't go through that list to say a few words about it. You can see it online at official Selenium site or YouTube, official Selenium channels. You will got the information at the end of the presentation. But the talks you're going to hear now are the first one is that was the most interesting for me: readable, stable, maintainable end-to-end testing in Facebook. The second one is Selenium and the 4 rules of simple design. And the third one, which Marco is going to present you, is screenshots in automated testing. Actually, it's his version of this one. Those talks we won't talk about it now, but I think Mark will tell you more about it. We will, let's say, organize one more session within our company. I don't know, in April, I guess. So you can hear something, some few words about those talks also. But Marco will tell you more about it. Okay, let's start. Talk number 1. Readable, stable, maintainable end-to-end testing in Facebook. By, I don't know, I tried to remember this and to pronounce that a few times and always got exception. So you can read it. Also few words about him. And let's start. End-to-end testing. Let's see outline. First question, what is end-to-end testing? Second question, why we should use end-to-end test? And third question, how we should write good end-to-end tests. So, what is, I guess, the most of you are from QA, so can someone tell me what is end-to-end test? If no one tells me, I will stop the presentation because you don't know what is end-to-end test and I won't tell you. Anyone? I have time. End-to-end test? Please. Exactly. Thank you very much. You got a ball? Anti-stress ball? Okay. As he said, end-to-end tests is something like user is going, it's test that mimics how user will use the application. On the question why and how, I will answer on the next slide. I just wanted to know what is end-to-end testing. So, good things about end-to-end testing will answer us the question why we should use end-to-end tests. Test coverage. So, end-to-end tests are pretty much complex, and as we said, it mimics how the user will use the application. So. Definitely it covers the most functionality of the application. Mimics real world user, as we said. Release cycle confidence. When you want to release something on a production, it's definitely you will be definitely more confident if end-to-end tests pass instead of, I don't know, unit tests or integration tests or whatever. So if we are talking about Facebook, when your test pass that sends a message from some user to another user, okay, then you will be pretty much confident that this part of the application is working, and you can release it on production. Test ownership, I will tell you more about it at the end of the presentation, not now. Bad things about end-to-end testing. Execution speed, setup and duration. The problem is, as we said, end-to-end test covers the most functionalities, so it's the most complex and it must take a long time. The thing we can do something about is a setup. So we can make a setup faster. Duration is duration. So I must log in as my account, search for some account on Facebook, then opens a message, dialogue, whatever it is, sends a message, log in as that account, check if the message is arrived in the inbox and so on. I can't do anything about it. It lasts long. So I can do something about setup. We will see after. Hard to read and write. Definitely hard to read and write, especially if you wrote that code, I don't know, month ago or something like that, and you have to maintain it. And you are using Selenium WebDrivers, REST APIs, or whatever you are using. You will need some time to figure out what you wrote there. Complexity and stability. We talked about complexity, but stability is also very important, because especially you are using CI tools like Jenkins or something like that. If you want to execute those tests in Jenkins, so you know your tests are good, application is good, but your tests in Jenkins are failing, and the developers build are failing because of your tests are failing. So they are blocked by your tests, and you are pretty sure it's good. You checked it manually or whatever. And we can also do something like something about it. And let's do something about each stuff, so to make end-to-end testing really good. Problem 1, execution speed. So, as I said, duration we can't fix. It lasts how it lasts, but we can't do anything about it. So, Selenium, you have different web browsers and everything, and sometime, time ago, when you want to use a Facebook, you go to a web browser, type www.facebook.com, and Facebook page is open. Now, what are you doing when you want to browse the Facebook? Just take out your phone and click on Facebook application. So we have Facebook application, we have Facebook Lite application, we have Messenger application, Messenger Lite application, we have Instagram, we have Workplace, and all of those are covered by Facebook, bought by Facebook, whatever. So we must do the tests for all of the stuff. I want to send a message using browsers, using each of those applications. I want to send a message. So how I'm going to test it? For the applications, mobile applications, I would need some emulators or so. So before each test, I need to set up the emulator. I need to make sure the application is installed. I need to open that application and then do the testing of it. Facebook fixed it by creating a project called One World. This project runs as a service. There are simulators all the time waiting for a test. There are pre-test setups, so you can request simulator for, I don't know, Messenger or whichever application you want. Health checks, that means all the emulators has enough memory, has correct applications installed and everything. You can parallel execute your tests. After each test, there is automatic test cleanup, and post-test metadata means logs, screenshots, videos of that test which have been executed on this specific emulator. So I won't tell you anything about it, but To fix problem one, which is setup, I can only tell you request resource, request more resources, request new laptop, request multi laptops, request whatever you need to do let's say to make short the setup before every test. For project one word, you can see on codefacebook.com and watch at scaleconference.com the video. Okay, but though this problem is fixed by Facebook, and by our solution is request more resources. But let's fix some. Let us fix some problem. The problem is hard to read and write. So I don't know how many of you were automating something using Selenium WebDriver, but you definitely saw something like that. So we are going to see some code example. Okay, so WebDriver, we want to find some element. It's a news feed, the homepage of Facebook. Okay, we'll find it. Then scroll down to a specific story. Then find that story by ID or whatever. Then click on that story to open that story. Then find element within that story which is comment option. So you want to place a comment, for instance, in that story. After that, you click on comment option. Then the comment text field will show up. Then post some text on that field. Then find the post button. Click on the post button and find all comment elements and make sure your comment is posted well. So this code looks ugly pretty much, and if you wrote that and after a month or two I ask you to maintain it, to change it, to do whatever you want to do, you would need some time to remember what you did, then to find where the problem is, then to fix it, and so on. Let's try to fix it, but before we try to fix it, let's make it even harder to read and write, and it's quite enough hard. So you saw something like this in your codes, a lot of sleeps. Selenium won't click on some element, then sleep some time. If the test still fail, okay, just add one more sleep or sleep more or so, and the test will pass. On Jenkins maybe fail, who knows, okay? That's one thing. Another thing is, sometimes first click doesn't work. Click once more to make sure it's working. And some wait for element presence, wait for element to be visible, and so on. Actually, Selenium and WebDriver provides methods and functionality for this, but I wrote my own to make it even ugly than it is. Okay, so let's fix it. In order to fix it, we must know some key concepts. First is locator. Locator is identifier for any web element. Second one is UI definition. This is structure of three of locators. Another one is component. This is UI definition and add some actions on UI definition. And the fourth one is page object. That means component plus URL, so you can access to a page object directly, not using a tree or structure of locators. Okay, but what are we testing? Some story. So you have, let's say, container. You have profile picture. You have timestamp, and you have some content. Let's define. Let's see what our key concepts fits in this story. So, story locator. First, I mean, the first key is locator. So you can find any element by, as I guess all of you knows, by ID, by name, by XPath, by tag name, by class name, by link text, by CSS selector, or something else. So any element from our previous screen can be found by any of those locators. And let's see what UI definition is. Our picture is here. So we have root as a story container. It's some wherever you see orange color in the code, it's a locator, which we just defined. So we are using as root element is blue line as story container. We will add some descendant. It's a profile photo. Then one more which is a timestamp, and one more which is a story content. So everything which is marked on the story is here, and it's defined. So it is UI definition. This is a locator. I mean, three or structure of locators. Those are locators. This is a structure of locator. We have root as story container and free descendant. It's some three. So it's a UI definition. Let's make this UI definition to be a component. So this is our structure we just created, and let's add some actions. If I click to user profile picture, user profile should be open. So now our feed story is a component because we have action within it, and also user profile is another component. So this open profile method does the click on a profile photo and return us another component which is user profile. Let's implement another method which is get post. So it returns text from this part of our feed story component, and open post, it just does the click on this part, so it opens this specific post, so you can like it or comment it or whatever you want to do with it. Just the signature. So we have definition as we defined in previous slides, and we have three methods we just add to this component. Okay, looks interesting. Let's play a little bit more. So if we can notice, we have like and comment button. But like and comment button are, let's say, component for itself. It has locators, definitely, like and comment, and it has some actions, like it or click on like, click on comment. So those are some actions. So let's create another component. Root is footer container, which is red. Two descendants, like button and comment button, and some actions. Click on like button, click and post. This means like post. It's enough just to click on like button. And for comment post, you must click on comment button, type some text, and whether send key, whether press enter or click post button to post that comment. It's whatever is more convenient to you. The signature of this component is footer definition, locators for all the elements, and two actions which are like and comment. Okay, let's as we noticed, one component is within another component. So let's make it nested component. The first our component is in green. The second one is blue. So feed story component, along with the definition we created, I don't know, on the beginning, we will add another descendant, which is a component, not locator. So we added a descendant, which represents another component. And we will add some method to get this component from a feed story. So adding this method, get story footer, it allows us access to all story footer actions. So and story footer has methods like and comment. So we can access like method or comment method using this story footer component, like calling method get story footer and dot like and get story footer dot comment. Signature, extending story definition with this extended we added one more component. Those three actions are from our previous, and one action is new action, so we can access all of those methods through feed story. Okay, let's do one level higher. Newsfeed. So newsfeed, we have stories. We have stories. It's here. We have inline composer. We have feed story. Newsfeed container is in red. All of the stories are violet. Blue is inline composer, and feed story is green. Some actions: open self profile by clicking here, and it returns user profile. Composer, open composer by clicking here, it returns composer. Open feed story by clicking some story, it returns feed story, and that's it. One more level higher. We have search bar, we have news feed we just defined, and we have toolbar. We defined everything news feed. We have search bar, and additional is toolbar and search bar. So page. This is a page container. I didn't mark it, and we have search bar at the top, news feed at the middle, and toolbar at the end. Some actions using search bar, newsfeed, and toolbar. And that's enough high, definitely. So actually this is, this dot here is Marco. Waited for me to come down from a Zinge or how it's called. It's in the middle of the Berlin Center Park, and he didn't want to come up because there were no elevators, just stairs. It's I don't know, 67 meters height. So where are we standing? We know what the locator is, we know what UI definition is, we know what the component is, and let's see what the page object is. So what the page object is, I will be fast. Page object is, as I said, a component and with URL. So green is a URL added in our component, which were Facebook homepage. All the actions are here from our component. Just it's a component and just added URL to allow access directly from a code, not from a tree or a structure. And how our tests will look like now, using all of this. So open web browser, Chrome, Mozilla, whatever it is. Open web page, login page. The yellow comments are objects that are returned from this method call. So open web page definitely should return login page component. And login page component must have login as a method inside. So open web page returns login page component. Calling login as a method from login page component will return us new feed component. New feed component has a method open composer. It returns us our story composer component. Post a story, post some story. It will place us back to a news feed because we created a new story. So it returns us on a news feed component. Open some story with text, find some story in a news feed with text hello world. It returns us a specific feed story, not all the stories. So we are within this story hello world. Open a comments. Open a comments. This method is inside feed story. Comment some story. Return type is again feed story. Like this story. Log out, and this is our test. So our test will look like this. It's much more easier to maintain. It's readable. Anyone. As I like to say, when we create something like this, I like to say, okay, my job is to provide people to create tests, whether it's developers or project managers or whoever they are. And I like to say, okay, but when I create something like this, I can pick up a random guy from the street and I can give him this test, and I can tell him, okay, just create n more tests using this one. So open another, open some different story, or place 3 comments in a row, or like and dislike a story and something like that. So that's the point of the whole framework. QA should provide a good framework for developers so developers should write their own tests. That means this step I skipped test ownership. The tests are not meant to be just QAs. So all the companies, okay, we hire QAs, your job is to test. No, developer's job is to test. QA's job is to provide them good framework so they can test it easily, because they are developers, they don't know how to test. That's problem 2 solved. Problem 2 solved, sorry, Serbian and English. Problem 3, complexity and stability. Okay, complexity, end-to-end tests are complex, so what can I do? I can use end-to-end tests. I can choose not to use end-to-end tests. If I don't use end-to-end tests, complexity is 0. That's good. And I can't do anything about it, but I can do something about stability. Actually, I already did something about stability. And let's define a principle of no surprises. So describe what you expect on the screen and let the framework handle everything else. Components are matched entirely before any action is taken. All descendants are present. So that's done by our structure and tree of locations and components and UI definitions. So any action which is taken, we are sure that all the components are loaded before it. So that means our tests are pretty much stable. Yeah, there are no waits, there are no while loops or repeat loops or whatever. We can create our frameworks. So, I mean, we can add some actions so it can automatically requery if UI refreshes. So when some time because I don't know why UI is refreshed, we can make our framework to requery, so to load everything again, every structure, every tree, everything we created. we should make sure uniqueness is guaranteed using UI definition. So I can access some story using news feed and story. So I can't access it using I don't know, login button or so. So if I define my tree and structure logically correct, so its uniqueness is guaranteed. Or also we should ask, avoid using XPaths as element locators anywhere possible. We should use anything else, like IDs, like some attributes. We must let's say ask developers to provide us some attribute which won't be changed at all. So because XPaths are pretty much unstable, and any element which is added before that element. So if we want some element here, this one row, and I am locating this element using XPath. Okay, when developers add another row here, my locator is not working. It will locate wrong element. So avoid using XPaths. Use IDs. Use any attribute, whether it's a tag name or class name or whatever it is. The best thing is to ask developers to provide it some attribute which will never be changed. Problem 3 solved. Okay, so to summarize how we fixed our problems, we had 3 problems, 3 solutions. Execution speed we fixed by requesting new resources. Hard to maintain, we fixed with our declarative APIs for semantics, as you saw here. Complexity and stability we fixed using principle of no surprises. And also our good framework we defined here. Okay, what are the wins? Excellent readability, as you saw. Anyone from the street can create and maintain those tests. Just we need to provide them methods to do it. Much easier to maintain, as I said. Write then tests in a minute. So when I create, I would take, I took half hour to create the first test, and when I give you okay, just create second test, third test, and end test, you will create it in a second. So just copy paste and just mix the method. So comment or like or whatever you do by calling a methods. There are no sleeps, no while or repeat statements, no XPaths as element locators. Better stability because of that. Downtime costs, so maintaining is much more easier. And test ownership, as I said a little bit earlier, provide to the developers good framework so they can create their own tests, because it's their responsibility to create tests, not QA's responsibility to create tests. It's their code, their responsibility. They must do the testing. End-to-end testing summary. What? Correctness test against application and website. Why? Better coverage, release cycle confidence, and test ownership. And how? Requesting resources, declarative APIs, and no surprises. Those free fixes that we provided. Okay, that's it from the talk number 1. Talk number 2 will be short. This talk is Selenium and the 4 Rules of Simple Design. It's by Thomas Sandberg. I know how to pronounce it. That's good. Some words about him, but I won't let you read it because we don't have time. Which are 4 rules? First one, test pass. The second one, express intent. The third one, no duplications. And the fourth one, make small things. So let me tell you a few words about every rule. Okay, test pass. What does it mean? Who's gonna tell me? I have more anti-stress balls, I guess, maybe. Okay, test pass. The first thing which tell us is there are tests. That's good, because if there are no tests, they can't pass. So but if they are passing, there are tests. The another thing it tell us is someone is using those tests. It's even better. So it's not, they are not staying there. No one is watching it. No one knows who created it. It's just on Git repository and so on. And there are some actions to do with those tests that exist and that someone is using it. And those actions are, they should be useful as much as they can. So it's on us to provide assertions and to make sure the tests are doing its job as it should. Constantly add new tests and maintain the old ones, so all the test cases should be updated constantly. The old one maintained, the new one created with the new features, and if some feature is changed, you should maintain the old tests. Do we need tests for tests? Definitely. The framework we just created can have many bugs. In our company, we have a pretty big framework. It's contains 2 projects, independent projects, and we found a lot of bugs in our framework. So, tests for tests, definitely. Express intent. What does it mean? No one know? No one's know? I know what is a 17. It's a prime number, less than 20. Okay, that's all I know. Now, I know a little bit more. So I have method execute. Okay, I know this is the same class, A1 and A2. Okay, it's the same class. This 17 actually is not an integer, it's a float. And I'm calling some add methods to object A1, provided n as parameter, calling this method as the same method for the object A2, provided minus n as parameter, but I still don't know what this is working. And this is a code example. In many cases, you are going to see this kind of code. And no one knows what this is doing. The problem is how there is some bug. How should I fix it when I don't know what this is doing? Now it's pretty much clear. So we renamed execute method to transfer founds method. We renamed class A to a class called account. We renamed A1 parameter as payee. We renamed A2 parameter as payer. We renamed n as amount. And I know what does it mean. So payee, add some amount. Payer, add some negative amount. So, okay, it's transferring funds from one account to another, but it's still not good. What is add? Why this is minus n? Maybe I'm gonna miss this minus n when I'm maintaining this code or something like that. But this one is good. Instead of add n, I will create method credit n, and instead of add minus n, I will create method debit n. So this code is actually good. It tells me what the code should does. The main point of the code itself is to code to tell me what it should does. So understanding the code is very mandatory. Rename variables, method classes, and everything so it can be readable by anyone. Tell clearly what you wanted to do in your code, and there are 2 quotes. The best kind of code clearly tells the story of what the code does. So when I look the code, it tells me the story of what that code should do. I'm not sure if there are bugs on that code or not, but the code itself tells me what it should do, like I'm reading a book or whatever. Watching a movie, I'm not reading a book. And one more, I think familiar with everyone, always code as if the person who ends up maintaining your code is a violent psychopath who knows where you live. No comments for that one. Rule number 3, no duplications. Looks like pretty much easy. Don't copy and paste code, but it's not so easy because this is the easy part. There are hard part because there are duplicate concepts. We want copy and paste code, and it's pretty much easy. But duplicate concept, we must. Actually, it's not so visible in our code, like when the code is copied and pasted. Whether it's because there are similar things we are testing or whatever similar things in our code, but it's a concept, so we can't definitely see it at I don't know smoke seeing, or how should I say it. Should every possible duplication be avoided? No. The first two things are much more important. Test passes, express intent, definitely. And there is one rule which tells us how to remove duplicates. That's a rule of 3. Remove duplication the third time you see it. So first time you are not sure, second time okay, you are pretty much sure, and third time you see it and it goes to your eyes, then it's definitely time to remove the duplication. Make small things. Simple rule. It's the last rule. Depends on the content, definitely. If you ask me, ask me if this room is small, when I set up those machines and you weren't here, I would say no, this room is quite big. Now when I see all of you and you are there standing, I will say, okay, this room is quite small. So it depends on the context, definitely. Does each module, class, or method have one single responsibility? So if answer is yes, that's good. If answer is no, no, break it apart. So if your method is, I don't know, going to the store, buying some smokes, and then goes to the pub, drinks beer, and smokes that cigarettes, then it's a bad method. You should create one method goes to the store, one method buys the cigarettes, another method goes to the pub, another method drinks the beer, and so on. So it definitely should be split. Does each method have only one level of abstraction? Yes, good. No, break it apart. Does each class can fit your screen without scrolling? That's the very interesting question. So the class complexity can be let's say measured by that one. Yes means nothing. Maybe it should be break apart, but if can't fit, then definitely is a candidate for breaking it apart. How to use those rules? Those rules should be iterated all the time, so there is no, okay, I went through those rules and everything seems good, and okay, I won't pay attention on it. No, iterating all the time. So you can use this algorithm to go through these rules. Why you don't got bored, then check those rules. If you find something, if this returns you true, if you find let's say something which is not good, improve your code. But I can add, when you improve your code, then check the rules again. So I didn't wrote that down, but that's why, because there are dependencies between those rules. Meaning fixing a name may uncover some duplications within your code, and you can reveal, I don't know, duplicated concepts. Removing duplications can lead to expressiveness improvement. So when you remove some duplication, that means you created another class, common class for doing it. So there are some improvements. There are definitely some improvements to be done on that one, code refactoring or whatever. Increasing expressiveness. That means that can lead to break something in 2 parts or so. That's all from me, folks. So. The next one is Marco. He will tell you a few words about screenshots in automated testing. And well, yeah, sure.
So, hi all. I will talk about screenshots in auto testing. That was a topic at Selenium conference in Berlin, but because of the time we got here, I will have to shorten it. So I made something myself, and I will talk about it. And the more you can hear in April 17 or 18th, when we at IntVenture will be talking about REST APIs, Postman, load testing, and some more stuff that could be interesting for you guys. So, there are three simple questions, really, when to use screenshots in auto testing, and those are why, how, and when. But the first question is, what are screenshots for? So if you have a FBI that's surveilling you, that's nice to post on Facebook before you go to jail. Or you have some funny messages and you have to share it with your best friend. So those are the real situations. Most of you are using screenshots or snaps or whatever. But in auto testing, we can make them, sorry? You broke it. Yeah, manual. So we can debug easier. If we have some jobs that are running on Jenkins or whatever and we cannot monitor them, instead of looking through reports or logs or whatever, we can just see the screenshot, and on that point we can see if the test failed, if the test passed, where it stopped, what are the stuff that we are interested in looking, and with the screenshots we can make that happen. We can visually identify some element that is not working. We can do that by in CSS selectors put some code color or whatever that can trigger the screenshot and make it in red, so we can know which element exactly broke. And it looks nice for project managers. So the second question is when or where. If we are using visual testing, we can use it there. We can make it trigger on start of our end-to-end or whatever testing we are using. So we can use the initial state. If we are logging in, we want to make sure we are logging it in the correct version of the application we are testing. At the ending state, if we are logging out, we want to see at the end the logout screen. And if we are seeing logout screen, good, great, we will screenshot it and we will have the proof that it went to the logout. If it interrupted at any point, we can make a screenshot for that moment, and we can see exactly where the test failed. If we have some important moments that we want to have auto testing capture, we can use it for that instance. So if we made, as Ivan mentioned about Facebook post, if we made a successful post, we want to have proof that it correctly appeared on the wall. So okay, we will screenshot that. And you can always think about new stuff where we can put it or where you can use it. So, how can we make screenshots in auto testing? Well, WebDriver has a few methods that can help us. You can use Firefox, Chrome, even Internet Explorer works. That's funny. So we can use driver get to go to the web page. Of course, we will go to Google. Then we can make a screenshot and save it at some file. When the file is created, we can edit it, color it, save it as a whatever format, change format if we need it, and we can save it at some point we want to save it. The second way is to use specific tools. The convenient part of those tools is not only they can screenshot the page for you, but they can also analyze it. And best part about analyzing screenshot is we can make we can see if there is any difference, any change from the expected behavior we are having. Some of those tools are WebDriver CSS, Applitools Eyes, ImageMagick, and stuff like that. And for the end, I would like to show you how with Applitools Eyes we can make a screenshot, and we can see differences and how it analyzes our screenshots. So we can see with purple or whatever color we want to choose, he can pinpoint the differences on each page, and because of that it will mark it as failed. If there are no differences on base page and the current screenshot we gave, then it will mark it as passed. Also, the good thing about these tools is, and we don't need to make our algorithms for ourselves, we can use existing, we can match by percentage, by parts of the screen. I don't know if we want to see just these buttons, we can just say, okay, we want to see these buttons that are correct. We don't need to analyze any of this, and those tools can provide that for us. The most important thing is to always use these screenshots on one machine, on one setup, because if we use different monitors, different operating systems, we can have a small difference from one page to another, and because of that, the whole test could fail. So when we put something, we make it as a base. And on that machine, from that moment on, we can for sure make new screenshots and be sure that it can correctly be screenshotted and analyzed for correct results. So that's it for me. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me or for Ivan. You are free to ask if we have time. Maybe one, two. Anyone? I'm free to go? Yeah? Yeah, you're free as well, so at least from my part. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Marko. We will make small rotation. So our next topic will be UX and data-driven testing. And our guest is Jan Valentin from Kayak.
So I know it's difficult back there, but whoever's not standing yet, could you please get up? Just take a break and get up. Please. Wait. Yeah, no exercise, but I just want to really kick it off with a short quiz, and I guess we'll be surprised. So what we're going to do here is look at different screenshots, and everyone guess which one is a winner in an XP. And I made it a bit more difficult because at least one result also was neutral, so there was no difference. Whoever gets it wrong may sit down. And we start now. So which one do you think won? Left? Right? None of them? None of them? Oh, that goes quick. None of them? No one? All right. Thank you. These two. Left or right? Remember, it can also be neutral. Wow. Is that neutral? For sure? You didn't say anything? Wow. Way too difficult. All right. Well, we can still keep going. How about these two? Left or right? That's actually that's actually a pretty strong one. The left one is 43% better. You wouldn't know. No, that's a neutral one. And last one is kayak versus Skyscanner. So which side is better? You know Skyscanner? So you prefer Skyscanner, all right. Whether actually kayak won in this case. So I said if 20% of us were still standing, would be really, really good. And unfortunately, no one is standing. Well, few people standing, but you didn't really join the quiz. What it really tells us, we don't know. We all don't know when it comes to UX, what's going to win. And we don't know at kayak, we don't know at Skyscanner, we don't know anywhere. We don't know at booking. And that's why we run thousands of XPs at the same time to find out what works best. I will flip back the slides because it actually not intended to start with a break. No, that's not me. This used to be me a few years ago. So you're not going to hear this talk from a tech person. You know, if I have to disappoint you on that one, I hope I can still give a good insight from a business point of view into A/B testing and why you do it and how you do it and what you can get out of it. Not an engineer. I'm actually from Berlin. I live in Berlin. Beautiful pictures we just saw. With kayak, and then I have a few investments myself, one of which is here in Belgrade, Viselio. We try to get the entire visa process to work online like the travel processes work otherwise. Kayak, which is so a little bit about what's the most famous brand here? Momondo? Trivago? Oh, yeah. No surprise. But they don't make any money, actually. If you look at they don't. We do, but Trivago, frankly, is bigger than even TripAdvisor out there. That's totally true. So what business are we in? Are we all in the brands I just mentioned? Is the meta search business? When does meta search business work? Essentially, when you have ample supply in lots of shops, you have a lack of transparency in the market, and you often also have a lack of tech savviness among providers. Look at airline sites still today. Look at some of the providers in the package industry, for example. Meta search always works when you can provide superior usability to users and, of course, a price comparison, which is not offered elsewhere. Why is Trivago not doing so well, by the way? Because booking is getting so strong that you can argue you don't even need hotel meta search anymore because it's all on one platform. And then strategic missteps. Meta search comes into play when the providers themselves don't really command their distribution really well. So for example, in the US, you would have United Airlines and some other airlines being really strong in direct distribution. Kayak is actually suffering from that because they don't pay us any money. We have to list them, but they don't pay us any money. Unlike in Europe, where most airlines pay us, except maybe for Ryanair or EasyJet. How does it work as a business model? In principle, you buy traffic, you have people click out, and hopefully they book. This is another example. It's Style Lounge. It's one company I've played a little bit with. And essentially, we aggregate the demand from all these various shops out there and then have people book either based on a CPC model or on a CPA model. Why do I say that? So CPC, cost per click, or CPA, cost per acquisition, cost per order. Why do I say that? Because in this scenario, it becomes extremely complex to know when your user works best for you. You may have more click-outs, but then people don't book in the end, so your conversion will go down, and you can very well, for a long time, play the game of increasing click-outs, making money on the click-out, but you're not going to win on the conversion on the long run because the user experience is not great enough for the users to book in the end. So, back to A/B testing. What does it mean? Essentially, it's a scientific method to measure how a new idea, which is your version B, performs against an existing implementation, which is your control group. You all know that, I guess. What is it not? It's not a conversion rate optimization game. We are not talking about segmentation here, which would be which would be different best versions for some people and then for others. And certainly we don't talk about personalization, which, by the way, I think in the travel industry in particular is still very, very basic. It's in its infancy. We keep testing A to B against the entire population rather than looking at what you or you might like better, and you may have very, very different interests. Part of the reason actually is that we make more money across the board from, say, very high-paying hotels versus the best hotel for you. That's why you will go on Booking or in Trivago and still browse and browse down to the second or third page to find the hotel that suits you, while the data may be there in Facebook or other sources that are connected. But that usually loses on our end in terms of monetization against what works best for the entire mass of people. What do we try to avoid with A/B testing? Oh, yeah, so that's the HIPPO. The HIPPO is the highest paid person's opinion, or the highest paid person opinion in the office. Actually heard that first from the Booking.com boss at dinner. I found it quite funny. He says that he wants to avoid the HIPPO effect all the time, but it is really, really difficult. But because what happens is, of course, in companies, and happens in the biggest companies out there, that you would say, the boss says, but I like that design, or even worse, my wife saw this yesterday, and you want to implement it, or someone in the team says, well, let's launch this feature now, and let's just launch it. I believe in it. I really believe in it. It's going to be huge. That is happening in many, many companies, even in very successful ones. So A/B testing tries to go a little bit against it, but a few moves when it comes to A/B testing I wanted to bring to the table here. Data always means numbers, not necessarily. Any trace you can leave online or offline could be data, of course. Data is objective truth. I'll get to that why it's not the case. And many, many times, even in A/B tests, you will see outcomes that in the end are not the ones that you will see on the top line of your business. Bigger is always better. I also don't agree on that. There are many companies who rely only on A/B testing, including Kayak, frankly. And I think a mix of A/B testing and usability testing, which, for example, Google does really, really well in their travel side, makes a ton of sense, and I'll get to why that is the case. There's one: data kills innovation. Why? Because you're testing essentially within your existing product, and you're only testing against that existing product. You're not open to new ideas. There's something to that too. I would say that happens to a lot of companies. So we're going to be careful on letting new ideas in, which may be totally different to your version A. And that is a cultural phenomenon and problem quite often. And there's one right way to use data to inform design, certainly not. If you look at XP results in A/B tests, you will often see that they are not very, very easy to tell, and then you have to interpret them. We did the quiz, we failed, and then we move on. Again, Kayak is better than Skyscanner. Why is A/B testing important for you and every single one of you if you work in any IT company? Because of this. It's the most critical factor to continuously optimize your product, to make your marketing dollars work, and to have conversion on the site that works, and ultimately keep your jobs or create new jobs. This is why is Booking.com so big? Because they have continued to optimize and optimize their UX, same as Amazon and others. That's the basic principle in terms of spending marketing dollars and then converting them. How does it work? Well, users are randomly separated, A and B. Data is generated, and now you have to look at what kind of data you're generating. What are you looking at? I'll get deeper into that. Essentially, you're looking into users using the site, 2 different versions of the site, and then you're getting one version to win or not. When there is enough data, you make a decision. And one is the winner. In this case, it's actually the control, which is good because you've had a great new idea, and that works better than the control. That's always what we want. So you have an inherent bias there already. You want the new version to win. Is that everything? Not really. because it becomes, unfortunately, a bit more complex. And ideally, you do A/B testing based on a proper conceptual framework, which guides you through the year, which guides you through a yearly plan. And that comes in 4 steps: data, hypothesis, experiment, and then act upon it, and the whole thing back again. Asking the right questions. And this is where a lot of companies fail. Maybe you know those circles. What are we doing? Why are we doing? How are we doing it? And why are we doing it? And many companies actually don't know the why, and many don't know the how. They only know what they're doing. So knowing what your purpose is as a company is really key to ask the right questions. What do you want to test it all? And of course, on the quantitative side, you can look at page browsing behavior, feature interaction behavior. You can look at what you get out of marketing sources, so how do different marketing sources then convert on your site. And you may look at historical purchasing behaviors. You have all of these data to look at and have to look at them very, very carefully to know what you're going to test. Do you want to get more conversions, or do you want to get the same people to come back more and have more retention? So some points here, of course, are one is like, think of landing pages. What in your top 10 landing pages doesn't really work well? We did it today, actually. We looked at a few data and found out maybe on mobile something doesn't work as well. We don't quite know, so we have to test it. But looking at data in the first place to then test data is very, very critical. The most painful areas in your user journey, identify them, try to find out which they are, and then you can test against them. How do you do that now? You won't have really good ideas about what to test unless you know what users might want, what is not on your website. And this is where I think the qualitative aspect comes in. So I would use the A/B testing framework as your principle. That is what is going to make an online shop really work over time. But you have to use qualitative data, talk to people about what's happening to them, watch them, see how they're interacting with the site. And you will see a lot of things that you cannot even imagine that go wrong, that people do not understand. And this may, of course, be survey data, heat mapping data, but also user testing in particular. And there are different ways to do it. As you may very well know, there are a few qualitative tools which you can obviously use. Some of that are free of charge, and some of them are very cheap actually to use. Usability testing comes in 3 different stages, if you will. One is you benchmark against competition. That's what we do here. So we look at Swoodoo versus Momondo, Skyscanner, Google Flüge, and Hipmunk, and we go through all of that in very, very much detail to understand what are these guys doing that we're not doing. The second one is you do diagnostic evaluation during your implementation, which is very, very key as well. So you try to find out how do people interact with what you're doing new, and then try to fix it. Whereas then in the end, you also do, of course, summative testing in terms of understanding how do users interact with the site in total. And all of that you use again to feed your A/B experiments and test it at scale. So you're testing here with 12 users, watching them very, very carefully to in the next step test it across thousands and millions of users with data. Hypothesis. I'll browse through these really quickly. But it's extremely important, and in the bigger companies you have 10s and 20 and 30 and 40 people who do nothing else but write down these hypotheses. So hypothesis should capture the essence of what the change you propose should make and what you think the likely effect will be. It should include a clear understanding and a plan that addresses what you will learn by testing the hypothesis. What does that mean concretely? Long sentences of what we're trying to achieve. There's one which I put here on top of it, Swoodoo, which is one of our brands, and says, people don't just want to use it for flights, but also for hotels. Now we asked that actually in interviews, and we found out, no, they don't. Bad luck. But this is the formulation of hypothesis, and it can go all the way into a very, very comprehensive endeavor where you, for yourself, try to figure out why at all should you test something? Because if you're testing the wrong thing, you're going to use your own resource, and you're going to employ a lot of engineers without having the right goals in mind. And then you look, in all of that, you continue to look at competition, which is very key. And you come up with then an experiment to test your guess. How do you prioritize that? Talked a little bit about that today. You have hundreds and thousands of ideas out there. And a pretty simple way of seeing which ones you should first test are the ones which are going to make you most money and are going to cost you least implementation time and effort. And you can develop a matrix, which is essentially a two-dimensional matrix, which will tell you which is high and which is low. Frankly, few companies do that because you always end up in the hippo effect and the CEO coming into the office in the morning and saying, but hey, we should test this. This is going to make us so much more powerful. It happens every day. But as an implementation pipeline, as a CTO, as a product manager, you should have that in place to make sure that and to tell your CEO, but hey, you're the hippo, don't do this. Yeah, because you're going to use the resources most likely in the wrong way. What are bad KPIs and what are good KPIs? So the number of page views, is it good or is it bad? Even if the duration on a site, is it good or is it bad? It's really hard to tell. Number of signups, number of transactions actually should go to the right. I think that's an error here. But what the number of transactions will not tell you, of course, is what you did in the first place to the visit dimension. So how many people use the site. So if you look at the number of transactions, and that happens all the time, it sounds very simple, but you had 20 transactions yesterday, now you have 25. Are you doing better or not? Maybe not, because you have twice the traffic. So be careful with those KPIs. Look at conversion rate, look at sign-up rate, and look always at percentage figures versus what your baseline is and versus your base population is. There are different ways of doing A/B testing. Of course, there are ABC tests, multivariate tests. So you're testing multiple versions against each other, depending, of course, on how much traffic you have. If you only have 10 users, you can split them 3 to 3 to 3. One may be remaining. The problem is you won't be statistically significant, so that's going to be very important. But you would do element testing on certain, so element testing, what would that be? That would be you're testing a certain element on the website. That's pretty simple. Multivariate, it just looked at, so you can test many different versions against each other if you have enough traffic. And flow testing is, of course, then looking at the entire flow of your website where you change multiple elements at once and try to figure out if that does better. Now, you don't know if every single element that you have now tested newly will necessarily contribute in a positive or negative way, but the entire flow will be better, and then you go into the flow and retest the different elements. Decide what's next. How do you know if your result is real? I guess you're all familiar with the concepts of basic statistics and stochastics. So if your result is 200 to 201, you might not really have a clear idea which one is better. So you need a massive amount of results and users to get it right. If it's 200 to 50, you can stop the experiment and say this is the winner. That's very key as well, and very often that may fluctuate. So you need the appropriate sample size. Well, if your variation wins, you launch it and you're happy. If your original version wins, you're unhappy, but you resist launching the new version. Often that doesn't help. But you try to find out what was wrong with your hypothesis in the first place, because otherwise you've just wasted time. And in either case, think about what is next. What's also important, whenever you do experiments and you change stuff on the website, try to communicate within the company. That often does not happen. And frankly, it does not happen very big companies. Maybe in big companies it happens even less. And then people don't know what's going on. And the hippo effect, or the hippo is supposedly the one who people blame in the end. Don't expect miracles. We had one XP today with a 20% uplift, and people ask, is this a good XP? It's a great XP. You know, if you have, assume you have a new version of your website, which is 20% better than your old version. That is massive, because otherwise your old version would have been really, really bad. I mean, literally, you wouldn't know your user if you're less than 20% better. So only 8% of A/B tests will really drive you like, yeah, I did something amazing. You know, it changed the website a lot. Can A/B testing resolve all problems? Well, of course not. What you end up with is a lot of ties. A lot of times you will call it a wash, you won't know, and then the hippo comes back in. You won't know your long-term effects quite often. It's very hard to see them. Whatever tool you use, and you build your own tools, or you use tools like Google, the long-term effects will be very hard to measure, so be careful with the interpretation. And what A/B testing, from my experience, also does not allow is major brand and website relaunches. If you really think everything needs to start from scratch and believe in it. And there's another thing which I call accumulation bias, and we see it in every board meeting at Priceline and Booking.com. We look at all of these XP results. If we count them together, we come to an RPM uplift of 8.5% on our revenues. And if I put all of that data together, we would own the entire travel market by now, because that would be all the revenues we would make. Every quarter, we get 10% better on our monetization. Unfortunately, not true. So all of these results, which individually would add up to 8.5%, don't effectively end up to 8.5%. The reason being that the tests are very individual, and in the end, the sum does not sum up in any case. We still report that number. So what if an A/B test does not carry you ahead? Maybe not. But that's what happens, of course, all the time. In any wash, it happens. The hippo comes back, fail fast and carry on, but keep doing it. So Thomas Edison said, by the way, they did not believe in the light bulb when it first came up. So that was one XP he ran. He brought the light bulb to the earth, and people did not believe in him, but he kept working on it. And what also helps, and there's something a little bit messy here, but always build a proper test plan, document your results, because you will not remember them. I mean, you keep coming back to them. At Kayak, we have 6 times tested on the front door a checkbox saying prefer direct flight. Now, who does not prefer a direct flight? And of course, the XP wins. But it doesn't help in the overall monetization, because it's an element which anybody would use. Retest later. And this is what's happening at Booking.com. If you retest something 6 months later, the result may be different. And those are all the reasons why. So be very, very careful with your biases. First off, expect change in user behavior. And also expect, of course, a change in your customer base. Coming back to XPs you believed in does make a ton of sense. We see that all the time. That's the testing plan at Kayak, just a short version of it. And some tools you can use. If you're not testing, you're not learning. That's pretty obvious. Still, many people don't do it. Always keep running tests. And if you don't have a process, you won't continuously improve. That's the other thing. If you just run XPs, you will forget about them. You will not have a proper agenda for your company. Wow, someone changed that at the back. Thanks.
Do we have some questions, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah, heat maps on the website. Yeah, I mean, we use of course tools in our user testing where we look where people use the website, what areas they use. Yes, it's eye tracking and click tracking both. Yeah, yeah. no. Oh no. The entire company does. I think that's one. No, it's an A/B testing company. Booking even more so. Yeah, I mean that's the answer. I think we all write tests. I mean at least on the commercial side, and then we implement them together. And then of course then you have QA, etc. But 1,000 people. Essentially, this is all we do. Yeah, because what else do? We don't buy hotels. We don't operate airlines. So all we do is A/B test. It's pretty simple. Shall we do the quiz again? No. I don't say too much data, but I think data from different sources. So if you cannot, and statistically, I don't think you can say there's too much data. What happens, of course, with a lot of data, sometimes an XP can go from 3% winner to 4% loser, and you don't really know why. That happens, and that happens across the course of years, of weeks, excuse me. But I think what I mean to say by that is add data from different sources, meaning usability tests, etc. They will tell you quite often the why also of something happening, which a user who is just clicking or not clicking won't tell you.
Thank you. Do we need a small break again, or we can continue? Okay, let's continue. So for tonight, we will hear something about data pools, and we have our friend Alexei from community of St. Petersburg. He is from Grid Dynamics, and
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Okay, welcome Belgrade, welcome Serbia. First time here, and my name is Alexey Lyanguzov. I'm quality architect in Grid Dynamics company. Today I will speak about our small tool library and actually in general approach to how to handle test data, and we name this approach data pools. Kind of introduction about our company. It's fresh on in Belgrade and Serbia. We have 2 offices in Russia, and St. Petersburg, where I'm from, and in Saratov, it's actually first office of our company. 2 offices in Ukraine, and now 2 offices in Europe. First one in Poland, and second one in Serbia. And main office is in California. Who we are? We're a primary outsourcing company. We outsource development, we outsource DevOps practices, and test automation. As you can see, we have 25% of engineers who are working as test automation engineers. It's actually 150 people, and we have 0 manual testers. All of us are test automation engineers, and usually we test backend, front-end, mobile, performance. Last days, it's also big data testing and infrastructure testing. And a couple of words about me. I'm 6 years in Grid Dynamics company, and now I'm a software quality architect and also engineering manager here. Also, I saw organizer of QA community in St. Petersburg in 2009. So how much years? So already 8 years. And before this, I worked in Borland, Sun, and Oracle during 10 years. Okay. What's the plan? The plan for today is to define the problem around this data, describe briefly usual approaches, how people solve this, provide new one, we name data pools. Also, we have open source library written in Java, and I will provide a couple of details how to work with it. And also I discussed this approach with the same problem with people from our community, and they said that it's not only applicable for test automation, it's also applicable for manual testing. And actually, this approach can solve it in manual testing as well, but it's not implemented, it's just idea. But let's go. What's the main problem? Main problem is that test data is always changes. If we can split environment at several, it's kind of low-level environments like local environment or development environments where we can have predictable data. We can update it when we want and how we want. Middle environment is kind of system integration environment. We are not usually have full control regarding test data, and we do not know what actually on this environment. And of course, we have some unpredictable data on production or pre-prod environment, but sometimes we need to test against this environment as well. The same about not test data, but services. Actually, we sometimes do not need data at all. We need just some mocks which will answer in a way we want, and it's enough. We can remove all useless services on our local environments and use mocks. It's fine, it's okay. It's not always possible again on system integration environments or such kind of environments where we do some acceptance testing and so on. And of course, we are not able to mock services on production. It's kind of strange, I think. Which problem manual testers meet? Actually, the same. When they go to when they're going to do some acceptance testing, they see that test data changed. Their test scenarios is outdated because test data is disappeared and spoiled and so on. How we solve this? Usually, we can duplicate tests. We can write test for every environment. This test, which carries own data, it's will be quite good. But as the first speaker said, let's remove duplication, and I agree with him. It's not maintainable approach. A little bit better approach is duplicate this data itself. We can provide several of data for low-level environments, for middle-level environment, and for production environment. It's okay, but again, we have to maintain several sets of test data, and again, this is duplication. And I do not want to do it, actually. And as an approach, we can use some filtered data. It's kind of a better approach because we have predictable things in our database. We can similar approach. We can add the data, synthetic data. We know what is it, and we use it. As I said, we can remove test data at all and use mock stubs and so on. And we can just generate as much data as we need if we have proper generators. All of these approaches are good enough, but not silver bullet. Data pools not silver bullets at all as well, but they solve more problems on all in one. Let's go next. Something strange with microphone. Do we have another one?
I can continue without microphone. Maybe it's better. Let's continue without microphone. So when we have a test which prepares the data, or actually test runs on SQL query or request to REST API and fetch some data and select data needed for the test, it's good if you have dozens of tests and if the tests are quite long itself. If each test needs milliseconds to be run and you need to run query which took 10 seconds, it's not applicable. Let's combine test into suites, and it will be better, of course, but we face that if you have thousands of tests, this approach again doesn't work, because people start to repeat yourself, will always fetch the same data before running every test suite, and we spent a lot of time actually on getting data before during running the test. We can skip it. Which are my main goals. I want to write only one single test, which will be executable on every environment. And on this environment, this test will find the data which is enough to run. How to do this? Let's use not constant data, but let's attribute data in test. And store this attributed data in the data pool and update this data pool before running the test. So the test will have all knowledge about data we have on environment, and we'll find data not on environment, but in this data pool. Let's compare tests. For instance, we have some tests which test some fundamental property of our product from mechanics. It's a real example. So we request some product 777 and say that add to cart button should be absent and font to order should be this. Okay. Then we do the same with other project, KTK, and say add to cart button should exist, and font to order should up. And we do the same with product 999. Expecting the same. Actually, it's lookup copy paste. Right? When we run this test, everything is okay because everyone is know what is happening. But in hacker mirror, everyone is forgetting why it's so, and if this part starts to fail, what will I do? I will just remove it because it's copy paste. But let's change it to data pool approaches, which require us to use attributed data. My product has an attribute or property phone only. So for first test, I need the product it might be 777 or 778, but any product which has a property on only set to code. So that's why I will not see add to cart, but I will see button on the front order. And now I see the details here. First one is for phone only is false. The second one phone only is null. So it means that default behavior is the same as the false. So, and if my product from this example disappeared from database, this approach will find any other product which satisfy this condition and test will pass. So we have a more stable test. The concept in general. So first of all, we define data types. It's like the product, the user, or something like that. We need to write some. Piece of code which knows how to fetch this data from database, from REST API, from file system. Next, we need to fetch this data, of course. Then we need to use attributed data, not just some magic numbers, some magic hard-coded data in test, but let's say why test needs this data, which criteria is produced. And then why data pools in plural here, because you have its own data pool for its own for every environment. So you have environment, production, you run, you fetch this data, and you have everything you need for test to be run against this environment. So some time ago, me and my colleague Evgeny, he's using it now in Serbia, but now he's back in Russia for a week. We created this library. It's open source. I will go briefly through this section. So it is on Maven. Who knows Maven? It's pretty simple to add this library to your product. So you just copy this path, and actually you can find data pool on Maven throughout. Which features provides our solution? First of all, you need to register some manager which knows how to fetch the data. Next is method fetch, which fetches the data. Actually, it's for all the data type managers to fetch the data. Two methods fine. Do the same, but first one for class name as a string, second class of the class. And this thing is serializable.
Let's try again. Works. Thank you. So this object is serializable to be reusable between test runs and so on. So we're able to store and load it. Actually, it was quite funny thing. When we created this approach, it was run before every test run. And because we are in St. Petersburg, in Russia, and we tested against production because all our other environments was not so good for testing. Security team discovered some suspicious activities at the night because every test run, so we have a team of 5 or 6 engineers who runs the tests, and we have CI which runs on every commit. And so at the night, I mean American night, they see that some suspicious activity on production environment. So what we changed? We created this solution as serializable solution, and we run every day or every night this fetching, and then during the next day we used fetch data from production environment. Next important interface here is data type. All the data types must extend this, implement this. It's provide method sets which sets the property at which add the properties collection. Of course, you can get the property and some introspective methods to list all the properties or get the type, and as I said, they are serializable. How it looks like. For instance, we have a user, it extends our interface data type, and it declares several methods here. Actually, this will be translated as this user has ID, has first username, middle username, last name, age, and birthday. It's quite simple. As you can see, it's Java 8 because we have a constructor here. One more example, some code data. It's with ID, type, and code. How that type manager looks like? It's too much code. I will not stop here. Actually, the main thing here is that it's use some REST feature, get some data, and in for loop fills our code data. So for every returned result, it's create a new quote and set the values for properties. So in our internal, in our data pool, now we have filled all data we know about this data type we are going to use in our test. Again, small example how to fetch data. We first create a couple of data type managers, then we register them, and then we run fetch, and all of this all this manager will do fetch data from environment. Next example, how to use it in Java. In Java, when we need something, we just say data pool, find some tourist by name. Name is tourist1, and then we can do some assertions with this, or some actions with this data. How we use in BDD, I already showed this example. First one is pretty simple. Second one shows that, second one shows that we are able to join criteria. So we need a user which age is greater than 20 and first name is something like that. And then we do some assertions. And the last part, pretty small, how it might be used for manual testers. Actually, it's not so hard to create some web interface which will provide several configurations. It should be done by test automation engineers or by developers. Actually, it's not so hard. And manual testers press the button, fetch data, magic happens, and then it's possible to find data which corresponds to your conditions. For instance, you need a user which age is greater than 20. You press button find, and you have everything you need to know about test data, and you can use in your tests. And if environment is updated, you do the same actions, and you easily have what you need. This pretty it. Here is a link to our library. Here is a link to Maven. It's better to use the search on Maven, and my contact personal. So, maybe some questions? I see a couple of questions. Do we have another microphone or this one? Okay.
So how do you clean up the data after the test execution on your environment?
We don't need to do this because test data is already on environment. I do not want to clean up anything from production, for instance. I just go to production databases or REST API and fetch the data which already there. Yes, we don't. Actually, it's not correct answer from my side. On small environment, I mean low-level environments, of course, we generate some data or use our synthetic data, but again, the same approach, we put some data here, and then we run data pool, and we have consistent understanding about the data on this environment. As I know is from my practice, all the environments are deployed from scratch. It's in virtual machines, so we don't need to clean up, roll back, or something like that, because we do it from the scratch every time.
What's the difference between your approach and basically like any other kind of file reading code that will insert data? What are other advantages? Because I saw that you enter data in the file, right? Sorry? Yeah. A little bit more details what other options are, because I realized we can do it from Excel also, through an API or from, I don't know, Apache ROI or something.
If I correctly got the question, why do we need this one if we can just create data, predefined data for every environment, right? Yeah, it's possible. It's one of the usual solutions I showed. And we use this one as well. But you need to manage several sets of the data, right? First of all. Second, they might be quite different. Some data changes more often on production, for instance, has always changed. On some SIT environment, it can be changed once in the month, but you always, but sometimes it happens unpredictable, in a predictable way, and you run the test and you see, oh, my tests not green now, but they failed, why, and realize why, and update your static data. Actually, it is almost the same, but you have a tool, and you have advantage. You should not do it manually, first of all. We are test automation engineers who would like to automate everything. And also you change your approach to test. You do not see test, give me a product 777, or give me a user Vasya, for instance. You will say, give me a user who has 2 credit cards in his profile, or give me a user who which account is expired, for instance. So on, you will see a more understandable test. Actually, there are more ideas behind this approach. For instance, no one knows how to make test coverage by data. This approach can help because you have data types and you have attributes, and you can do some analyze some coverage, how much data types you use and in which combinations, so on. It's not yet ready, but it's future. Well, thank you. More questions? No? I will be pretty clear. Thank you very much.
So just before we leave, I would like to say a few words. First of all, thank you all for coming.
We're sorry if the conditions weren't perfect because, it snowed, so that always sucks. At least it didn't rain inside or something crazy like that. So, again, thank you all for coming, and I would like to just inform you about a project of our community, which is called Creative. It's something we've been working on for quite some time now. It's an educational project. So in the last, say, 2 months, we've been doing some good work. We've done some workshops in programming, so like Java, in basics of software testing, and you can actually go online. You can look at our website, Creative. We've opened up our educational center. We have courses running, so you can come, you can visit, and you can learn with us. And also, for those of you that don't know me, and most of you don't, I am a blockchain engineer, and I would like to invite you tomorrow, so that's on the 27th, in Belgrade Office Park. We will hold a blockchain Q&A, so it's like an informal ask anything you want type of event, where I hope to see many of you that are still here, that are curious about what's going on, what's this whole hype around blockchain about. So maybe I can help you out. I've also invited a few friends from the industry to answer some questions that you may have, to clear up misconceptions, and just to hang around. So once again, thank you for coming. I hope you had a good time. So it's on tomorrow on the 27th in Belgrade Office Park at 6 p.m. It's on the gallery. I'm sure you can ask, just come in, ask the receptionist, and he'll direct you to the event. So, like I said, I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something. And I hope to see you all soon.